Alright, what's going on, everyone? Hopefully you guys are doing well. Before I begin this lesson, I want to give a special shout out to the Gospel Project for Students for providing me with this lesson so that I will just be the one to give it and not actually think things through doctrinally. And so special thanks to them for that. And I will be using their Unit 16, Session 4 for this message. And it is titled, God Promises to Sustain His People. And so, a bit of backstory before we begin on this. We're going to be looking at a dream, or you could say a vision, from the prophet Daniel. And so, pretty much a prophet is someone who speaks forth. Since Daniel is a prophet of God, he's going to be speaking forth things that he sees or hears from God. And so, we will be looking at a prophecy, or you could say a prediction that he had. And we're going to be in Daniel chapter 7, verse 1 through 8, for the first passage of this thing. There's two passages, so this is the first half, and I'll get to the rest of later. So, beginning off with this one, in Daniel chapter 1, verse 7 through 8, it reads this. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and visions of his head as he lay in his bed. Then he wrote down the dream and told the sum of the matter. Daniel declared, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, 4 winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, and 4 great beasts came out of the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. Then as I looked, its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the ground, and made to stand on 2 feet, like a man. And the mind of the man was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second one, like a bear, it was raised up on one side. It had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and it was told, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I looked, and behold, another like a leopard, with 4 wings of a bird on its back, and the beast had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, terrifying and dreadful, and exceedingly strong. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces, and stamped what was left with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and the mouth speaking great things. So, we just read in that passage that the prophet Daniel, he saw these 4 beasts that came out for the beast. I wouldn't say that he saw them necessarily at the same time, but just one after another, you could say. So in progression. And Bible scholars, to be quite honest, to get the you could say the answer to this prophecy, you just need to read ahead. So the answers are within that same chapter if you just read on ahead. And so these 4 beasts, they're 4 kingdoms, or 4 empires, you could say. And so the Bible scholars, they say that these 4 kingdoms were the kingdom of Babylon, the kingdom of Persia, the kingdom of Greece, and the kingdom of Rome. So those were the great and mighty nations that conquered and trampled. Yeah. And so, but then that does describe them as well. Like, they had power to do pretty much whatever they wanted, and they were terrifying to the other nations that were just looking at them, or that were being conquered or devoured by them. And like I said, the answers are pretty much within that chapter. And like the 4th beast, that's the hardest one to decipher by the prophet Daniel. And so he sought out answers for them, and I can't really explain it any better than verses 23 and 25 in that same chapter. And it reads this. Thus he said, the 4th beast will be a 4th kingdom of the earth. It will be different from all other kingdoms, and will devour the whole earth, and tread it down, and crush it. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom 10 kings will arise, and another will arise after them, and he will be different from the previous ones, and will subdue 3 kings. He will speak out against the Most High, and wear down the saints of the Highest One, and he will intend to make alterations in times and in law, and they will be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. So pretty much the description that we read about what the fourth beast will do, it's right there. And so that's a good explanation of it. And many Bible scholars say that the little horn that replaced the 3 horns with eyes and a mouth or something like that, he is what's known as the Antichrist. And so I don't know much about that, but they say that's evidence of the Antichrist. And so we will get into the other part of Daniel's prophecy, which is in verses 9 through 14 in that same chapter. And it reads this: And as I looked, thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was as white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames, and its wheels were burning fire. A stream of fire issued and came out from before him, and 1,000 thousands served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court sat in judgment, and the books were opened. I looked then because of the sound of the great words that the horn was speaking. And as I looked, the beast was killed, and its body destroyed, and given over to be burned with fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, but their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man, and he came to the Ancient of Days, and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion, and glory, and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. So in this passage of the prophecy that Daniel made, it talks about another, more powerful, one who will rule over all people and all nations. And that one is described from the Ancient of Days as the Son of Man, with the white clothes, white hair or wool-like hair, and a flaming throne. That all pretty much points to Jesus. So Jesus is the one who is going to rule over the earth after those 4 beasts. And so what can we learn from the prophet Daniel's prophecy? Well, not just those 4 kingdoms that we read about, but just any kingdom that is not God's is prone to sin, prone to great evil, and will one day pass away. But we can be assured that after everything is done with the earthly kingdoms, that God's kingdom, who will be ruled by his son Jesus, will stand forever. And so, just since this is a prophecy, it's a prediction, you could say. I mean, sometimes predictions can be false. Sometimes they can not be true, or just how can we be assured that this prediction is correct, you could say? Well, if you grew up anything like me back in my days, many eons ago, you guys will know something like this. It's a cootie catcher. Pretty much, or you could say a fortune cookie. Fortune cookie. Or like one of those little 8 balls where you ask a question, you shake it, and then you see what answer comes up. Those are pretty much, you could say, predictions as well. And so it's fun. It's very fun, and it's it's not really accurate. Anyone can attest to that. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I mean, who knows? Who knows? But really, those things, they give you a good result, or maybe a bad one. Who knows? Who knows? But it gives you a temporary happiness for pretty much just right then and there. But with God's prophecies, um, with God, it's he tells you he doesn't sugarcoat things. Like I said, fortune cookies, the 8 ball, the cootie catcher, they sugarcoat things a lot, to be quite honest. But with God's, he gives you pretty much the middle of it, and he gives you the end. He gives you it straight out too. In this prophecy, in the middle of it, the 4 beasts, they were pretty scary. He did not sugarcoat anything like that. So he said there was going to be some bad times ahead, but yet he gives you eternal hope for the future by giving you the ending, which was in this case, oh, excuse me about that, like Jesus ruling over all the kingdoms, him coming through in the end. And of course, God has made many prophecies before. He has kept those prophecies. He has done them. Or, like this one, it's still going to come.